well, actually, it's Urban Meyer's team, and the Buckeye head man is now on the podium as we head back to McCormick Place here in Chicago.
Guiding the Buckeyes after leading Ohio State to a 12-1 overall record and a 44-28 victory over Notre Dame in the Fiesta Bowl last season. Ohio State returns 8 starters from last year's squad. Coach, go ahead with your opening statement.
Sure. Thanks for being here, and it's an honor to represent The Ohio State University in the Big Ten Conference in our 5th year as a staff. Like the other members of our Big Ten family, thoughts and prayers for the Volts and Sadler family and that tragedy that was just experienced. Where we are as a team in 2016, we have to find a way to replace arguably one of the best group of players ever to come through college football. And that's they won 50 games, they won a national title, highest graduation rate in the history of Ohio State University, and a record NFL draft. So I've been answering a lot of questions about a young team. The issue would be if it was a non-talented young team, and that's not the case at all. So it's a very young team, but talented. Probably the most critical coaching month that our staff will, I know, speaking for myself, that I've ever been through, because we have to get these guys ready. 44 of our players, which is over half of our scholarships, are kids that never played in a game, so we have to get them ready. So our practices are going to be much different. They were in spring. We carry that out throughout the summer, and it'll be interesting. But I'm very excited to be around them, as all our coaches are this time of year. But this will be a new challenge for us, and one that I can't wait to get our hands on, I believe on August 6th when we report. So I'll answer any questions for you.
We'll take our first question here down front on our right.
Hey, Coach. Steve Hellwagon with 24/7 Sports. Obviously, news came out last week about Briante Dunn. Just 2 parts to this question. First of all, is the door open at all for him to come back? And secondly, failing that, what is the situation? Will you be moving people over to help Michael Weber and Tony Williams, whoever else you have lined up there? How's that going to shake out?
Yeah, there's no chance that Briante will come back. Depth is a concern. However, you have, you want 4 bodies at the tailback position, and I count Dontre Wilson and Curtis Samuel in the mix. So you have Demario McCall, Antonio Williams, and obviously Mike Weber. So that is a concern. And how we manage practice, because that's a very physical position, and how many times will we have Mike Weber and Curtis Samuel get hit throughout training camp. Those are all things that remain to be seen, but I'll watch that very closely.
Coach, our next question is far left of the room.
Hi, Coach. Dave Biddle from 24/7 Sports. Following up on that, do you think Mike Weber will be the starter at running back?
I think so. You know, his performance in spring, his issue is he has to stay healthy. I like where he's at. I don't like where he's at. I love where he's at as far as what kind of physical condition he's in. And I anticipate he'll be the starting tailback, but that's why we have training camp.
More for me. What is your biggest concern as you look at your team this year, either from a personnel standpoint, or just what's your biggest concern entering this season?
Just reaction to game, to the job, running into the shoe in front of 110,000 people. And the good thing is at Ohio State, we already had the one at 100,000 people for a spring game. And just the experience factor. How do you get them? How do you stay healthy yet put them in game-like situations as much as possible during training camp? That's what's keeping me awake a little bit right now. And Coach Marotti, obviously, that's my go-to on those type of things. And how do you give them a game? How do you let them experience 3rd down and 6 and at full speed, full reps, and still have a healthy team by the time you get to September 3rd?
Coach, we'll go to the back of the room here on the right under the lights with Teddy.
Hey, Urban, Teddy Greenstein. Any comparison in your career? Have you ever had a year like this where you have so few experienced guys coming back?
Well, we lost. I was looking back. I think we lost 6 players to the NFL draft in 2008. 2010 after the 2009 season, and we lost 9 this year. So not as many lost. However, I can't recall a time where you're talking about a very, very talented group of players that have waited their turn, and a very talented group that just got there in June. We're going to play them. My goal is to play every freshman. I know that doesn't happen, but we want to play the freshmen as soon as we can. So to answer your question, it's a couple times close, but nothing like this.
Our next question's here, second row on the left.
Bill Rabinowitz, Columbus Dispatch. Since the spring, what have you seen that's given you the most optimism about 2016 and maybe the most pessimism?
Well, our strength coach, that's where I kind of hand the team to him right following spring practice. And, for example, I can't wait to watch our offensive line. Michael Jordan's probably going to be a true freshman, will be in the starting lineup, but from what I've seen, his development since he got here in January is outstanding. So just the development of a very young team that our strength coach is very excited at the speed and athleticism of this team. He's not sure he's ever seen one like this. So now we just have to put it in, get it football ready or game ready.
We'll go next door to our next question.
Yeah, Urban, Tim May, Columbus Dispatch. People are still trying to pick you guys to win the Big Ten and be a contender in the college football playoff. Is that a little out of whack early right now, or do you see that potential in this team?
I see that potential. I see, I think 2014 was the template that everybody wants, and that's J.T. Barrett was buried in the depth chart, Darren Lee, Eli Apple, Zeke Elliott, Mike Thomas. Those guys, they were no names, and they became very good throughout the course of 2014. And another guy, Cardell Jones, was buried in the depth chart. So a lot of pressure on our coaches, assistant coaches, and myself to get them game ready. I would say that going into it, this is as talented as group, top to bottom, as we've had. Now, how do we get them game ready?
Stay on the aisle here on the left side.
Coach Bill Bender, Sporting News. I know. Sorry.
He's right here.
Well, with that young team, like you mentioned, some coaches might not want to take them to a place like Oklahoma. But for you, what kind of test does that pose? And as a coach, do you kind of like that and embrace it?
I don't have any choice to say I like it. I'm not sure I really like that, but I've never been there. I've watched them on film. I have great respect for Coach Stoops. He's a good friend of mine. It's there. We know it's coming. I'm glad we have 2 games to get a little bit underneath our belt. I can't. It'd be hard to take a completely green team into a game like that. But we'll be ready. We're practicing noise early in training camp. We're going to try to get that mindset very, very early because we see what's on the horizon. But it'd be a mistake of myself and anyone to overlook our first 2 games. You're talking about kids that have not played in a major college game, and Bowling Green had a very fine last 3 years, and Tulsa has got a very electric team that returning quarterback that scores a great deal of points. So it's there. However, I got to make sure we stay focused on the task at hand, and that's get them ready for that first game.
Next question is directly behind the gentleman.
Hi, Coach. My name's Annie Agar from Wood TV at Grand Rapids. Some can say that the rivalry with Michigan and OSU has been kind of restored since the return of Harbaugh. After losing the starters that you did, how big of an impact are the recruits going to make, and is it enough to beat that team up north?
That's a long ways off. It's a rivalry, and everyone knows how we treat that rivalry at Ohio State. Very serious. It's every day it's there every day. Are we going to be ready? That's the healthier team, the development team. That's so far off. But you made a comment about the recruits, and we've had very, very good recruiting classes over the last 3-4 years, and I see it. It'd be a problem. There's been examples throughout the years, my years too, that this guy's supposed to be a great player. These guys are supposed to be, but they're just not. I don't feel that way. I feel that they just had to wait their turn because of what was in front of them, and the chains come off pretty soon, and we're going to find out what we got. I can't wait for the first practice because there's a few guys that I can see it in their look, in their face. Because a guy that has a Zeke Elliott in front of him may not have the urgency that he has now when he sees it's his show. And I see that completely throughout our program, where guys have been waiting for the opportunity, and now the opportunity is there.
Coach will go to the back of the room and directly into the right on the white.
Urban, Hondo Carpenter from Spartan Nation. James Franklin, speaking to the Reading Eagle, said that Ohio State, Michigan State, and Michigan had been negatively recruiting against Penn State. In fairness, I did not get a chance to ask Harbaugh, but I did to Antonio. Could you address that? Is that something that Ohio State does?
Absolutely not, and that's the first time I've heard of that. But I'll address that with Coach Franklin if that is an issue, and if that's a pretty strong allegation that I have not heard yet. So that has not been presented to me until this moment. Absolutely not. And we got a great deal of respect for every school in our conference, and we do just fine in recruiting to not worry about that stuff. So once again, I'm glad you told me that that's true, that I will address that.
We'll go to the far left of the room, Coach in the aisle.
Urban, Nicole Auerbach, USA Today. You're talking about a lot of new faces and young guys, but how much more comfortable are you heading into a season like that with a guy like JT Barrett back and his leadership?
Well, there's 3 people that we named captains immediately after the season, and that was, I can't imagine going into this without JT and without the other guy, Pat Elflein. Pat Elflein, in my opinion, is the best center in college football, and a little bit like the baseball metaphor about you need to be strong up the middle. We're very strong, and that's all eyes will be focused on the center and the quarterback, and I can't, if I had my draft picks, those are the 2 I'd pick. And then same on defense, all eyes are on the center of your defense, and that's the middle linebacker. And Raekwon, they all 3, we're very fortunate they all 3 have incredible leadership skills, and you want that in the middle of your defense because he raises the player of level play around him, and so does JT and Pat.
Coach, right down in front of us here on the right.
How's it going? Jonathan Jaffe, Orange and Blue News. Just, what can you say about Lovie Smith and what he brings to the Big Ten Conference?
In instant credibility, name recognition. I don't know Coach Smith. I met him yesterday. I think we met a couple times throughout our journeys. I know people have worked with him and for him. I know people have played for him, so I think it's great for our conference, great for Illinois, and anxious to see what he does. But a lot of respect for Coach Smith.
Coach, our next question is in the back of our left.
Hey, Coach. Dalton Shetler of the Regional Radio Sports Network in South Bend. And on the topic of comfortability, with not as much of the quarterback hoopla surrounding this offseason with Cardale Jones and JT Barrett, and it's more just the center of JT Barrett, do you feel that relieves some pressure for him and allows him to perform at a better level?
Great question, and I think so. It remains to be seen. He did not have a great training camp last year for whatever reason. We had a great conversation. I actually drove him to the airport on the way here, and we were talking about that. And there was a lot of distraction with Cardale and with who's going to be playing quarterback. And then he was still overcoming a pretty serious injury that took a long time to heal. So he didn't have the spring reps that he needed. He did this year. And I anticipate he'll be as good a quarterback as we've had because it's his show and he knows it and he's prepared.
We're on the aisle here toward the back.
Urban, Ryan Dunleavy from NJ.com. Just could you talk a little bit about what Greg Schiano's brought to your staff and how the dynamic is between the 2 of you, since obviously he's been a pretty successful head coach for a long time and now he's got a boss for the first time?
Well, I try to stay away from hiring friends. Matter of fact, I haven't for most of my career, and he was an exception because we are that close. We've been good friends for 20-plus years. We share very similar philosophical views on how to run a program and how to treat players and what to expect out of your coaching staff, and he's been a gold mine for me. And him and Coach Fickle are 2 high-end, high-character people that get along very well. So it's been I'm not sure perfect is the right word, but it's been exceptional, and he's great to have on the staff. And I just admire a guy. There's been Dan McCarney. I hired him when he was a very successful head coach. I wondered how that would work. I was very skeptical. How do you go to not be the head coach? And Greg is like Dan McCarney did. He's such a good coach that he just picked up right where I imagine he left off when he was a fantastic assistant coach before Rutgers.
We'll take our final question here in the middle of the left.
Hey, Coach. Jacob Myers with the Lantern. So the receivers seem to take a big step in the spring game. Kind of talk about them and especially Noah Brown coming back from injury.
Receivers are top to bottom as good as we've had, talent-wise and speed-wise, athleticism. They did take Paris Campbell had an incredible catch, did some things that I had to see. KJ Hill's a no name that I'm excited to watch, and there's many more. So Noah Brown was going to be a starter when he had that tough injury a week before our first game, and he'll be a starter this year. You have Corey Smith also, who started for us and played a lot of football, that had a tough injury a year ago as well, got his 6th year. So talent shouldn't be the issue. It's consistent performance, and and playing in the showtime, when it's showtime, is going to be the key. But talent and speed, athleticism will not be an issue. It's how they perform. And that's where JT is going to be so critical, because you're going to see a lot of wide eyes. A lot of those guys have not played.
Thank you very much, Coach.
What's that?
You're all set.
Oh, thank you.